thing. So they're going for, like, the Raphael is good for like team fight, mobility, of course some sustainability from the holy healing, but I don't know how it pans out, especially now we see that the Sicilian is going to be the last pick to secure that team fight, that composition coming in from Omega.
Well, now that we have seen both team compositions, we can see that Smart Omega is going for a very late game scaling lineup. They know that with the Xavier and Beatrix from Evos SG, they can actually take their time and scale up, because that is exactly what their opponents want to do as well. Now that we're preparing to enter the land of Dawn, burn this sight into your eyes. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we could very well be looking at the swan song of Evos SG. Will they be able to prevent themselves being knocked out of the competition? Only time shall tell.
All stakes on the line here as we go into maybe the final match, Evos' match to prove here, up against the defending champions, Smart Omega. Smart Omega once again on the blue side and Evos taking the red.
That's a huge question that I want to ask as well. Like, why have they opted for that same position in the drafting as well?
It's a good question, and one that honestly we can't really provide a good answer to, because ordinarily you would think that, alright, they've lost on this side multiple times. Evos SG especially should want to swap positions, but I do think that they're more comfortable here because they want to be in a position where they can counter Omega's draft instead of having to reveal heroes too early themselves.
Looking at these compositions so far, do you have any preferences? I mean, Evos SG, they kind of have that Natalia, but my worry is that it doesn't scale as well into the lane. And I think JPL has probably picked up the Natalia, but not too much success so far.
I mean, that's going to be the question here as JPL goes in for a pickoff, but maybe that's exactly what they want to do, right? Maybe Evo Singapore, they want to play for that early game. They want to try and snowball, allow and give space for Adamir to potentially scale, because every time we see Evo Singapore in the back foot, we always see that Adamir is falling so far behind because of the pressure that Omega is creating. Now, with the presence of the Natalia, it sure is going to try and buy that time, but we'll see what happens here as it is 1 minute in, still nothing too fancy just yet on the board.
There's basically going to be a timer on the side of Evos SG here. Yes, they have really strong late game with the Beatrix and the Xavier, but because they also have the Lancelot and the Natalia, they now have to be the ones to dictate the momentum. They need to enter the mid game at an advantage, or Omega with a complete scaling composition will just completely blow them out of the water.
Here though, with the Phantom Execution chasing down E2 Max and manages to get his first blood, but they react, they try to respond though, and Sailor with that Dawning Light manages to help to disengage the fight. Evos SG have the priority to start contesting objective.
A really good trade here for the side of Evo Singapore. One, you're preventing E2 Max from scaling too fast in that early game, and two, you're creating space for your own team to be able to get this objective. But the way that we're seeing it on the map, it does seem like Omega is the one to set up first.
Right now, Evos, they're nearby. Looks like it is Omega that's going to be the one securing that. Ryzen gonna be able to take it away from them, and that is just not really ideal for Evos, because again, with this kind of lineup they have, they want to be the ones to secure that early game advantage, and as long as Omega enters the mid game even equal, then they will be at the advantageous position.
And it's tough, right? I mean, Evos actually, they need to really step up and accelerate the process of engaging some of these fights. Yes, they got the first blood, but as we saw in the previous game, they have to convert these into objectives as well. Otherwise, they would not be able to get any sort of a meaningful lead.
Yeah, similar thing that we see from Evo Singapore. Sure, they have a little bit of aggression, and they are going to look for pickoffs, and that's quite different to what we saw in game number 1 and game number 2. We didn't see too much of initiation from Evos, probably because of the draft that they brought in the game. So Omega now is a step behind in the sense they do have a scaling hero, E2 Max, who won't deal as much damage than Evo Singapore in that early stage. So they need to be able to babysit E2 Max, and Evo Singapore knows this.
Yep, they're trying to counter-engage onto JPL, though the Holy Baptism stuns him out, and it will be Kelra that gets the kill onto him. You do not want that 1-1 to scale up.
Yeah, we already mentioned beforehand that Raph, a good counter to the Natalia, and Omega just piling on the pressure here. Ryzen picking up the 1v1 fight against Gear in his own jungle. This is already turning out to be not so swell for Evos SG. Yes, They're only 700 gold behind, but you can already tell the kind of impact that Omega is making across the map.
And like we said, right, the timing kind of, it's not equal. They're not on equal foot here. If they're equal, that means that Evos is behind because it's a ticking timer at this point. The turtle is spawning at just under 5 seconds now. So Evos SG, they should look to contest this, but once again, Omega is getting more of the map control.
We'll see what happens here. It does seem like both teams are going to be circling in towards that area. And early enough, already a Clock of Destiny has been secured for the side of E2 Max. They are creating such huge space. Will Gear actually try and contest this one?
Right now the turtle's being contested. Gear right on top of it. Dawning Light going the miss. Chakanu somehow the one securing the turtle for Omega. And the Sanguine Claw is gonna pull the Lancelot back into the clutches of the rest of the team. As now Nick going to try and run interference will disengage for the rest of Evos.
Yeah, Evos tried to, I guess, pull a play there. Chaknu pulling off that save onto the turtle. JPL in the mid lane, some trouble here. Gets hit so much by the bat's impact. Manages to get away for now.
Evo Singapore now, they are in the back foot. Omega has a 2,000 gold lead, and you can see that reflect onto the items already. You can see that Omega is already on its way to perhaps the second item, and Evo Singapore, I kind of stuck behind on that first.
Yeah, absolutely. They're definitely a bit rough for them right now, but we do have to note that Sayla on the Xavier has been a saving grace for Evos SG many times in the past, and he was actually able to pick up that Clock of Destiny at the exact same time E2 Max did, so he specifically is not that far behind in gold, and as long as Evos SG doesn't allow themselves to fall too far behind, they do still have a chance of extending this game long enough for them to come online.
That's what they're looking for here, coming on to Renzio Sailor as well as JPL, but he is so tanky, and together with those shields, they just don't have a number against him.
The issue is the composition that Evo Singapore brought to the table is really pick-off, right? You have the pressure from Natalia, and you can go in one by one with either DPS or even burst damage coming in from perhaps the Xavier or even Adamir. But now, they don't have any sources of CC, so when it goes into that mid-game and it goes to the late game, Evo Singapore, they're going to fall far behind because they don't have the potential when it comes down to a 5v5 team fight. Whereas from the side of Omega, you have Chaknu with that Holy Baptism, as well as that Falling Star Moon coming in from Renzio. There's just so many things to play with. There's not one clear-cut winning condition, whereas Evo Singapore, it's just only one, and it doesn't seem to be working right now.
For that reason, you can definitely see the pressure on Evos right now, but hold on a second. Chaknu has to use the flicker to get away, but he is in dangerous territory, right into the hands of Nick. He still stops him with the Holy Baptism. He dies, but that is a fair amount of time wasted.
Yeah, huge amount of time wasted. He created so much space for Omega to take the objective, and Evos SG, they don't even get a single thing out of that. I mean, Chaknu, yes, one death, but how much does that really mean in the long run?
So disciplined coming in from Omega right now. They're just going in for those turrets. They managed to get one in that bottom side, and they're looking for more. But meanwhile here, I feel like JPL is scouting for something, perhaps.
But is it going to be enough? I feel like JPL is already way too behind in farm. The Natalia definitely needs items to actually take fights. And speaking of fighting, Gear gonna be picked off yet again. Omega just making use of their map presence and mobility. Right now, Ryzen is completely outmaneuvering JPL.
And Omega, look at Renzio just taking out the farm all by himself, trying to strip that off from Gear as well, taking advantage while he has a death timer put on him. So Omega, they have the late game scaling, they are getting the gold that they need. This is looking extremely dangerous for Evos.
Dangerous and bleak, to be honest. I mean, on Gear 131 already 8 minutes in, what's going on with Evos right now? They're not playing like a unit. They're not looking for initiatives on the board. And it's supposed to be Omega on the back foot because they have that Sicilian in the early game. But if we're looking, nothing of that is reflecting at all on the game. They are now with a 6,000 gold lead, pushing another turret in that top side, in that bottom side, and maybe even taking another one.
I think a lot of this has to come down now to mental fatigue. Evos SG has been on the back foot the entire series, and now that they've drafted themselves a composition where they know they have to be ahead in order to come out on top, and that is not succeeding, you can definitely tell that they're having difficulty, but they're engaging onto Renzio.
and trying to fight back a little. Just as you said that stuff, I think they were trying to prove it to you that they still have something in them to come back from this game. But yes, fully agree. You know, you mentioned this is a scaling composition, and to top that off, Omega has so much ability to engage and disengage from the team fights. Right now, Renzio getting ganked on by 3 members of Evos SG though, and JPL securing the kill for himself as well as a bottom turret. So some consolation prizes here for Evos.
For sure, compensation on the board, and that's going to be huge, being able to take these one by one. I think that's a plan B, but wait a minute.
Adamir getting caught out here, has to try to make his way out, but it's not going to be possible as Kelra secures the kill. Sailor comes in with the revenge, and now Evos SG are looking for Chaknu. They get Chaknu and Gear as well in the back line, putting out so much Evos. As we said, consolation prize, they get even more. So I guess this Cascas is really working out for them.
Yeah, 3 members taken down for the side of Omega, only traded for 1. It is going to be a Lord on the way though, because Omega were actually in that vicinity. But Ryzen here goes in for another pick-off on the board onto the member of Evo Singapore. I don't know. Now is it worth it? Now is it worth it?
I do think it's still very worth it for Evos SG because up until now, they weren't able to take anything against Omega, so trading evenly is still going to be beneficial. But the Dawning Light instantly breaks down Renzio alongside Wesker. They take the tier 2 tower though. Here comes Chaknu from the side. He's looking for JPL, but the rest of the team not ready to follow up. They're going for the objectives instead.
Yeah, taking care of the mid tier 2 turret already. Omega, the moment they pull the trigger, they just go all in for it. With the Lord, they've managed to shake down all these turrets, and Evo's almost down to their inhibitors.
This is tough. This is tough. I guess one of the things that Evo Singapore can do is try and utilize the Natalia in its Plan B form. Plan A, go for pickoffs. Plan A, go for those early games, aggressive type of 1v1 situations, or even just pickoffs across the board. Plan C, D, E, F, split push, split push, split push. But that even is very difficult because Omega has that Ling.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. The Ling is really messing up with Evos SG's plan. And even though they did give it over, recognizing that they would have the mobility to deal with it, Ryzen is just exercising much better awareness over the map. And Omega is, again, just manipulating this game's tempo to their own style. They're the ones in control of the map. They're the ones to decide when to go for the fight. The only times when Evos is able to gain an advantage is when they're able to catch Omega off guard, and they need to be able to fabricate those situations.
But even then though, Omega, even if they lose members, they get something else in return. Like they got the lot earlier off of the fight from Evos SG. So no matter what, it seems like every single time Omega comes out on top. Ryzen at the top side trying to look for a pickoff, doesn't quite find that, but manages to push his way in. And look at Omega, just so disciplined, rotating as an entire unit.
Okay, but that was good, right? That was good. They were able to get an objective on the board in the top side, and that's exactly what we were talking about. Okay, you can't go in for that 5v5 situations. You can't go in for those skirmishes. What else can you do? Focus on objectives. Focus on those split pushes. They were able to utilize the way that Omega was clumping up to look for a good siege, and the way that the Lancelot was actually able to go and rotate towards that top side and find a turret on the board from the side of Omega. And if Omega keeps doing this, this might actually be the saving grace that Evo Singapore actually needs, as now Omega though are going to start opening that Lord.
The question is whether or not they're gonna show that vulnerability again. Omega is very good at adapting to these sort of situations, and now that they know that there is a weakness, a chink in their armor, you can be sure that they're going to try and adapt to it. That Dawning Light though, definitely getting very close.
Almost getting it, unfortunately. Not being able to secure the kill, Omega, Evos actually tried to pull the split push down, but Omega had an answer to that as well. And on top of that, they baited the Lord. So Omega has so much control over the map, and Evos actually just being forced to respond to things time and again.
Ooh, look at that damage of that Dawning Light. Okay, you can say that Omega scales, sure, but that Dawning Light is going to be a problem for Omega. They need a way to be able to find him and take him out, because just chunking them to half health before a Lord, that's going to be a huge factor as well.
Yeah, definitely got to play around Sayla, but here comes the engagement. Evos, they need to run away from Omega as Ryzen is now jumping in with Tempest Ablaze.
Gear almost falling as well. Will they be able to clean him up? Down bot side though, Nick is in some trouble. They get 2 kills, 3 kills onto them, a return kill onto Kelra as well. But Ryzen racks up a triple for himself through that Adamir. Aggressive plays here with the flicker in, trying to get Chaknu. Gets the last hit to close it up, but he gets shut down by E2 Max and Chaknu, and it's going to be a wipeout on the side of Evos SG.
Clean cut game coming in from the side of Omega. It was Adamir, the last one standing, but unfortunately, he came out a little too aggressive. Now Ryzen and Sayla in a 1v1 situation. Tempest of Blades happens, but the shutdown actually comes to Evo Singapore.
Oh, it looked like that was going to be the end right there, but I think even Ryzen himself realized that with the Tempest of Blades, he wouldn't be able to escape from the Xavier, so just stood there prepared to meet his end. Evos SG going to be preserving their chances in the competition for now, but you can already see the amount of damage coming out from Ryzen, getting a triple kill by himself in the back line. That's not ideal.
Yeah, and I mean, was that a mistake? Because now Ryzen isn't here to contest the Lord. Evos, though, they're still tentative on pulling this trigger here, going to chunk down the damage slowly, and they will be able to secure it for themselves. But now Omega comes in, they want to be able to engage, and the crossbow of 10 procs all onto Gear and manages to put him in a body bag. Sayla is the next target here. 2 of them fall, traded out for 1 E2 Max. Evos SG, they get the objective, but they pay the price for it. Adamir in some trouble. Renzio chasing him down. The stun comes through and the kill comes through as well.
That's not good. That's not good. 3 members now have fallen from the side of Evil Singapore. Sure, there is a Lord on the way, and it does seem like JPL is looking for a play. Let's see what he can do.
Ooh, jumping onto the 1-1. They actually managed to pick off Kelra there. So Evos SG, they're not ready to sit down and roll over just yet, but they're now in a 2v3 situation. Will Omega be able to break straight through? Looks like they're gonna make the wise choice to retreat.
They had the creeps, but you know, this is, as we said, an Omega V2 of sorts. They look super disciplined, going to make the decision to only push when they are 100% confident of doing that. So backing off for now. But Evos SG, Eterna, you said like maybe 5-10 minutes ago that it was looking really bleak. How is this looking now?
To be honest, it's still looking bleak. Sure, you can find some contests on the board, but the way that Omega is playing, they're not making mistakes. And if they do make mistakes, they just find a way to be able to come back through it. I guess their only saving grace is going to be JPL to look for some pickoffs on the board. But the way that Ryzen is playing like a monster on this thing, it's going to be a very tough time for Adamir to pop off.
What is notable though is that since Omega are already so strong, they're actually confident taking individual fights, and they're definitely spreading themselves thinner than they normally would, which actually creates a lot of space for JPL as well as Adamir to be able to find the squishier targets in the backline, because Ryzen is too busy in their backline instead.
It's like you're being torn by 2 things, right? You want to engage, but at the same time, you need to be able to make sure that nobody dies, because as we know, Adamir and Sayla are always the winning conditions to Evos SG. Nick and Renzio brawling it out here in the top side, taking some damage, but you can see both teams just waiting it out for any opportunity to start a team fight before the next objective comes up. Ryzen finds Gear at the bottom side. 3 members of Omega 4 rotate down to take him down. Gear dashes and tries to make his way out, but it's not going to be enough, and he has to bow out of this one. And Omega, they have the numbers advantage now.
1-7-1 is Gear's KDA. He has been taken down 7 times in this 18-minute game. Sure, he does have a way of try and splitting, putting the map, and that's exactly what you want to be trying to do. But unfortunately, that being said, it's the same thing as game number 2. Sorry, when I think about it, right? They want Gear to be able to contest the objectives, but every time it gets popped up, he gets taken down right before it because he's trying to split the map. So maybe next time, don't rely on Gear to be the ones to do that.
Well, the question is whether or not there will be a next time, because now the final evolution of the Lord might go to the hands of Omega. Dawning Light to try and steal it. Here comes JPL, but Omega in a much better position here.
Yeah, definitely, and they've already secured the Lord for themselves, Omega as well as JPL to boot, so they are having the upper hand here. Once the Lord comes out, this could be the final stand that Evos SG has to make.
One member down, a Lord on the way for the side of Omega. It does seem like Evo Singapore are looking for something, but is this going to be a mistake? Ryzen here already sniffing those bushes. They don't want to move a single finger right now because that would just definitely really put the nail in the coffin.
That was actually quite dangerous there for Adamir and Gear. It just so happened that Omega didn't check that one single bush. If they were caught out of position there, that would have been the end. But Evos SG still has the opportunity to defend right now. It's going to be a difficult one as now the Luminous Lord pushes in the mid lane.
Yeah, even if they didn't get caught there, they might just right now. Sayla doesn't even have his ultimate to be able to help defend this, but there is enough damage from the side of Evos to quickly clear that Lord out. Omega, unfortunately, somehow didn't have the rest of the waves to be able to make the push.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. JPL, they're looking in that bush, maybe trying to get a pickoff onto E2 Max. But once again, Omega, with the very disciplined plays, they decide to disengage. And now, Evo Singapore, they're starting to reach their power spikes. I saw a Holy Crystal being taken in for Sayla as well, and you can see that he already has a Divine Glaive. So expect really huge damage penetration, and maybe the way that they're playing with the cooldown so high, they can use that Dawning Light to their advantage.
Now that we are in the 20th minute, you can see that most of the players on the map have already completed their items. Evo is trying to push out to contest the Lord, but Omega knows that they need to make sure the Singaporean team remains in their base. They cannot afford to take any more risk because, as you mentioned, we are actually reaching their power spike now.
Yeah, it does seem like that's going to be the case here, but JPL may be caught in a bad situation. The Tempest of Blades has been popped up, but look at what is going on.
Well, they actually secure one kill already in that engage, and Omega, they're just so quick. Now they're trying to go on Gear, but the Mystic Field will be able to hold them at bay for now.
They're playing so safe. Why? Tell me why, Staffa.
Well, you have to realize that Evos SG is really good at prolonging these games here, and that's what they're doing. They're clearing up the wave. A fight is starting again, but Nick is taking the brunt of the damage. He's fine. Crossbow of Tang, not quite enough to finish off Sayla, but Kelra is on top of the crystal. They want to end this right now. Nick finally falls after ages. Killing spree going over to Omega, but they do still try to contest this. They don't have a minion wave, though. Evos SG with this Xavier is good enough to clear up, and he has a lot of damage.
Definitely does. They spent it all on Nick so far though, and he took so much damage before they finally went down. That's what gave Evos SG the chance to defend this, but the Lord is here now. This one, maybe for real, they're actually going to take it and push. They've been waiting for an opportunity to use this and finally close out the game.
They're completely ignoring that minion push in that bottom side. They want to go big or go home, and this might be the final stance here once again for the side of Evo Singapore. JPL already looking for a play, scouting vision, but Renzio, I think he knows, man, at this stage, the way that Evo Singapore is playing, they're playing with a pattern, and Omega is so good at reading patterns.
Ooh, that was close. Sayla nearly timing it perfectly for the Lord, and that would have changed Evos SG's fate entirely. So Ryzen was able to secure it just in time. But so far, we have seen Evos put up an incredible defense, all thanks to this Xavier. Omega has to recognize now that Sayla is the big problem, preventing them from pushing straight into the base and ending things. If they're not able to find that opening, we could be seeing a repeat of Evos' game against RRQ yesterday.
That kind of plays to what Eterna said, right? Omega is so good at reading patterns. It's almost like they picked up this disciplined approach from RQ as well as Evos, and they've been so patient just waiting out this game. I think ordinarily in the previous team fights and the way we've seen them play, they would have already gone and pulled the trigger, but they have not so far. They just want to be 100% sure, and maybe this will be it now as they get so much onto Adamir and manage to put him into a body bag. This is the play that Omega wants right now. Gear in some trouble. Tempest of Blades lay down. Will they able to secure the kill? It is JPL that goes down next, and they run up to the top inhibitor turret just for good measure. They don't have enough minions to be able to push this down though. They are coming right up now as Omega. They wait this out. They want the close. Gear goes in, but he gets put down. Immortality pop, but not for long. They don't need it because Omega Omega secures this entire series with a 3-0 against Evos SG.
The defending champions once again showing what it is and what it takes to be crowned the champions of the sea. A 3-0, so clean, so textbook, so disciplined. This is what we were waiting for this whole time. We were waiting for Smart Omega to pop off. The switch has turned on, and I gotta say, everyone is in danger.
Unfortunately, that does mean that we're going to be seeing the final Singapore